I thought I'd go back to something really early on. This is a piece I did from 1996 called Bridge. It was the first, I had been making stuff in my studio in Providence, Rhode Island, and I decided that I wanted to start working in the spaces where I was collecting material. So in this first piece and through this talk, I want to just go over thinking about a line, piles, sculpture, and how to make a piece in really formal terms and how that translates into public space. In this piece, I scrubbed all of as high as I could reach with bars of soap, so that would define the space in terms of height. And I raked the entire grounds and made these lines, which are all cut off. But the lines went to these vanishing points in the landscape. And it corresponded to the space where businessmen and kids from Fort Thunder would cross the railroad tracks and as this kind of like in-between space. And it's a space that I cleaned because it was such a crossover space. Some of these lines and the rocks were all the debris in the middle of the space that was pushed to the outside. And instead of just doing labor in a space, I actually wanted to deal with the aspects of public art in terms of plop and drop. This is called Pile of Trash from 2002 in San Francisco. So with this piece in particular, and especially because my sister started working for the Bush administration, even though we grew up with lesbian mothers, I decided that I needed to scale my work up, and I needed to have a social equivalent to what she was doing in government. So it led me to this piece where called Pile of Trash, where it's not just me as the pile of trash, it's everybody else too. So I worked with a group of friends and a crew and team and directed them to then gather as big piles of trash in downtown San Francisco in the financial shopping district. Part of what I do is there's a lot of solitary experience, and I think when I was starting to get really bummed out in San Francisco, I want to say in like 2011, 2012, I needed to come to grips with re-understanding the place and space that I live in. I befriended a fisherman, and I started being very interested in the connection between the land and the sea. So I decided to trace and walk a line and draw a line around the entire coastline of San Francisco with this piece of driftwood I found at Candlestick Park, and I dragged all the way across to Ocean Beach. Through this process of drawing a line, I also had this idea that I'd carry a line. And I wanted to carry a mile-long rope from one of Mark's crab pots through San Francisco. I decided that you can see the shoreline, both the original and the developed shoreline of San Francisco from this old map. I decided that where do I walk this line? The context becomes really important. So I mapped out all these different creeks of the city. I rode down them with my bicycle and filmed them, and then decided on different paths that I would carry this rope along. So with everything I do, I test stuff because there's consequences to our actions in public space. And before you involve a group of people, you need to test it. So I walked with a crew of 4 to 5 people who are my assistants and friends and collaborators. And we wore these life jackets because we were connecting the water, and we also didn't want to get run over. So this is us carrying it in Islayas Creek watershed. And you can see how it scales when it goes from a single group, a small group, to then an enormous group of people that carry a city block length of rope. Along this walk too, this is along Isleas Creek, along Alemany Boulevard is Alemany Farm. And we stopped there to collect ingredients for, if you're gonna do a long walk with 50 people, you better feed them at the end. So at the end of this walk from spring to bay, we would collect food along the way, gather it in kayak sacks, waterproof bags, and carry it all the way to the end.
1 minute.
So as we're walking the path of water as a group, we decide at the end of the entire walk to feed ourselves with sardines that were originally canned along Isleas Creek, and drinking beer from different breweries that are along the watershed. At the end of the entire watershed, these creek walks, which were Isleas Creek, Mission Creek, and Yosemite Creek, I had this floating watershed that was on the bay to then allow yourself to, or allow viewers not to just walk the path of water and experience the downward flow of the city, but to also sit and reframe their experience of the city like I was doing on these other walks, from the water and not from the land. We would ferry them out to this watershed, and then people could hang out. The crew itself, Nolan Jankowski, Tim Copra, Hagen Crosby, and Matt Shapiro, and Courtney Costello all helped on this project, and we would sleep out at night in these wonderful spots. Thank you.